Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing climate change, abrupt climate change, things adjacent. Appreciate y'all tuning into the live stream last night. That was cool. That was fun. I call it a success. It went well considering my first dive into it. Yeah, there were a lot of great comments. So many comments that I couldn't actually read them all, and there's so many that I want to talk about, but I don't know that I have the time in this particular video. I wanted to cover a few things. I wanted to quickly say, Gray Silverback, thank you so much. I got your letter in the mail, and I really appreciate you supporting this channel. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to do this video, probably the last video for the year. It's been an interesting year. It's been, I think, a really good year for this channel. I gained a bunch of subscribers. I probably tripled my subscribers this year, even though it's a very small channel still. When you're talking about the most ratings killing subject on the planet, it's hard to have like mass appeal, but it is what it is. Anyways, we are small, but we are mighty. So I want to just kind of plow through. There's a couple things I want to read, but quickly, I wanted to cover this article from The Guardian from yesterday. Extreme heat wave in Australia, not yesterday, the day before, Friday the 28th. Extreme heat wave in Australia, catastrophic fire conditions as temperature records broken. Just, more news on the heat wave going on. It is insanely hot in Australia. And I also just saw a post a couple minutes ago about the fact that they're actually having some heavy rains in Australia. That one place in Australia has had a meter's worth of rain already this year. So that's like way off the charts. So they're getting hit by a few things, mostly heat though. So I want to read this article from Kevin Hester. And this is from today, or what was yesterday in Australia, or in New Zealand, excuse me. The article is titled, "It's the End of the World as We Know It," posted on December 31st. In most Western cultures, there is a tradition of saying Happy New Year as one year draws to a close and another beckons. As we stumble relentlessly into another anthropogenically warmed January, and in a time of abrupt climate change, there will never be another Happy New Year for the biosphere or any of the awake sapiens or other earthlings. One of the penalties of an ecological education is that one lives alone in a world of wounds. Aldo Leopold. Because of social taboos, despair at the state of our world and fear for our future are rarely acknowledged. The suppression of despair, like that of any deep reoccurring response, contributes to the numbing of the psyche. Expressions of anguish or outrage are muted, deadened as if a nerve has been cut. This refusal to feel impoverishes our emotional and sensory life. Flowers are dimmer and less fragrant, our love less ecstatic. We create diversions for ourselves as individuals and as nations. In the fights we pick, the aims we pursue, and the stuff we buy. The greatest danger, Joanna Macy. Anyone paying attention can see that both the biosphere and the global economy are teetering on the brink as the early stages of collapse are unfolding. Many of us are nursing our ecological wounds. Many of us nursing our ecological wounds wouldn't normally lament the collapse of industrial civilization, but understanding the implications of the loss of global dimming and the attendant 1 to 1.5 C temperature spike from mass warming, and then the meltdown of the world's 450 nuclear power stations and their 1,300 spent fuel pool fires makes the prospect of the collapse of the capitalist cancer that is killing the living planet a terminal sentence for the biosphere. We're damned if we do and damned if we don't. Soon, the living will envy the dead. On December 28th, on this blog, I published an article titled, "The Civilization is Finished," Rupert Reed, Paul Ehrlich, and Jem Bendell. Embedded are YouTube presentations from Rupert Reed and Paul Ehrlich and Jem Bendell's seminal paper, all predicting that relatively soon we will see the collapse of industrial civilization. Paul Ehrlich's interview in The Guardian begins, "A shattering collapse of civilization is a near certainty in the next few decades due to humanity's continuing destruction of the natural world that sustains all life on Earth," according to biologist Professor Paul Ehrlich. I believe Paul Ehrlich, who I interviewed previously on my and Professor Guy McPherson's radio show, Nature Bats Last, is being overly cautious after being heavily attacked over some of his predictions in his 1968 book, The Population Bomb, not coming to pass. What Paul and Ann Ehrlich couldn't have known in 1968 was the green revolution fueled by our crack-like addiction to fossil fuels would allow the already ballooning of the human population to escalate dramatically. This aspect of overshoot has compromised the natural world enormously. In his seminal book, The Collapse of Complex Societies, Joseph Tainter points out that the more complex a society becomes, the more vulnerable to collapse it is. There has never been a civilization in history remotely as complex as this one. Therein lies the mortal danger we face as the lunatics juggling the global economy create ever more debt out of nowhere and continue to juggle chickens and chainsaws. In 2008, the global economy teetered on the brink of collapse due to unsupportable mountains of debt. Lehman Brothers bank collapsed and threatened to bring down the entire global economic system. And the solution the gangsters came up with was more debt. The global economy has all the hallmarks of a classic Ponzi scheme. Desperate times call for desperate people to literally try anything to avoid the worst scenarios unfolding. When faced with economic collapse of an empire, one of the go-to options is war. Antonio Guterres, the United Nations Secretary General, told global leaders this week that the world has less than 2 years to avoid runaway climate change. What the fuck does anyone think can or will be done in 2019 to avoid runaway climate change when we are already in it? I note that the UN said in 1989 that we had 10 years to avoid dangerous climate change. How can we have 1 year left 30 years after having only 10? We are being lied to at the edge of extinction. Why would we be surprised? Right. On Christmas 2018, the U.S. Plunge Protection Team was mobilized to discuss financial markets amid a rout on Wall Street. What can we expect them to come up with between canapes, champagne, cocaine, and hookers, and in Donald Trump's case, cheeseburgers? All we can be certain about is that we teeter on the brink of collapse that can and will mark the extinction of most, if not all, complex life on this fragile planet. I was in Berlin one week before the Berlin Wall came down, which triggered the collapse of the East German state. And shortly after the collapse of the Soviet Union, there was not one hint of the coming collapse on the streets of East or West Berlin. Yet a week later, the game was effectively over for the Eastern Bloc of nations. Excuse me. This collapse, being much wider spread, will be infinitely faster and terminal, not just for nation states, but for the entire biosphere. Wishing you all the best for the coming new year with some gallows humor from the brilliant Katie Goodman and her sisters. There's some YouTube videos from Katie Goodman. Excellent article by Kevin Hester. And I, kind of asked the question last night in the live stream about whether we would see an ice-free Arctic this year. And I don't know whether an ice-free Arctic, the consensus is an ice-free Arctic just triggers immediate runaway global warming and or runaway collapse of industrial civilization. I don't know about that. I think there's a lot of resilience in the system. I think that humans really, really want to keep things going like they're used to. And I believe when the edges start looking a little funny, um, that humans will try and make everything as normal as possible for as long as possible. They will hold on to this industrial civilization. I don't know how much resilience is in the system though. So this is what I do know. I've been hearing in the economic doomsday world, I've been hearing that the collapse is imminent since 2014, 2015. And I have, on some levels, been living my life. I did more so back, a couple of years ago. I lived my life as if the global economic collapse was right around the corner. Like, hey, who cares? Like, whatever you're going to invest in, make sure it's short term because, the economy is about to collapse. Well, guess what? 4 years later, the economy has not collapsed. And that's not saying that it's not going to collapse in the next year. I'm just saying, I think that the leaders of the world are willing to keep this thing going for as long as possible. They're willing to hold on. They're willing to patch this thing up with duct tape and baling wire for as long as possible. And, as evidenced in Venezuela, like they've been going down the tubes for a couple of years. And they're still, as I've said this before, they're still kind of limping along. Is anything great there? Hell no. Is it a great place to live? Hell no. But people are still living. People are, the system is still, people are still like, eating food and, living somewhere and, doing things and going to work. And, it's not total collapse and ruin. It has just been a slow demise. And I kind of see that playing out myself. I feel like that's going to be the play out. I don't know. Will we see a total economic collapse this year? Will we see ice-free Arctic this year? Will we see the fallout from both of those things happen in 3 months, 6 months, 2 years, 3 years? I don't know. I feel like it's just going to be a slow, painful kind of crawl down the mountain, where 2024 looks really weird, but possibly the next few years might just be like, I don't know, I don't know what's wrong with you guys. Oh, but the stock market's collapsed. Okay, well, anyways, I'm doing okay, so whatever. Let's just keep going. Let's keep buying the gas and going to work. Let's keep, buying the cars and buying the food at the store. Let's just keep this thing going. I don't know. I think the only thing that you can do is to prepare as if the collapse is going to come tomorrow. Live your life. You have to live your life in both worlds, as if the collapse is going to come tomorrow, and live as if we might have a couple of years left of normalcy. Live as if we have 5 years left of normalcy, because 5 years from now, surprise, surprise, 2024, you might wake up and look around and go like, okay, well, we had an almost ice-free Arctic, or we had close to an ice-free Arctic, wasn't quite there yet. It's 2024. We had, some recessionary type looking things happen, but here we all are. We're, here we're still doing our things, so that very well could be the case. And, if you bunkered up your house and sold everything that you owned and, kissed your kids goodbye, this year, and in 2024, everything's kind of, everybody's like, what do you, everything looks good to me. It's going to be really strange. Are things going to collapse? Yes, they will. Are we going to see complete climate chaos and climate breakdown, biosphere collapse pretty soon? Yes, we will. We just don't know how soon. And It's just one of those, you know, that's how the universe is going to like play a really big joke on us, is to have us all like sitting around going, well, that's it. 2019, that's all. Or 2020 for sure. That's it. You know, and in 2024, 2025, we're having another presidential election, and, you know, minimal damage is occurring on all fronts or whatever. We're still, you know, spelunking along. Anyways, that was a weird little ramble there. So I'm going to read an article from Way Past What the Fuck. Brand spanking new from yesterday, Saturday, December 29th. Freedom, just another word. Although not climate related, the subject of what constitutes freedom is a topic worthy of examination. If you ask anyone on the streets of this country what it means to be free, you would most likely get, in order of appearance, responses that are directly related to the freedom to buy stuff. You would hear that we are free to go to any store we want. You would hear that we are free to go fill up our car with gas and drive anywhere we want. You would hear that we are free to go to any restaurant or movie that we want. You might on occasion get a response about freedom of speech or beliefs. What you will never get is a response about what it truly means to be free. What Alexis de Tocqueville, author of Democracy in America, was when Alexis de Tocqueville, author of Democracy in America, was touring the United States in the 1830s, he noted the feverish ardor of its citizens to accumulate. Yet even as the typical American clutches at everything, the Frenchman wrote, he holds nothing fast, but soon loosens his grasp to pursue fresh gratifications. However munificent his possessions, the American hungered for more, an obsession that filled him with anxiety, fear, and regret, and keeps his mind in ceaseless trepidation. Andrew Basovich, in his 2008 book, The Limits of Power, said, our world, the one we call the free world, is not really free at all. For the majority of the contemporary American, the essence of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness centers on a relentless personal quest to acquire, to consume, to indulge, to shed whatever constraints might interfere with those endeavors. We have recast the Jeffersonian Trinity in modern vernacular. Whoever dies with the most toys wins. Shop till you drop. If it feels good, do it. So it would appear that the pursuit of things which now represent our freedom or freedoms has been going on for a while. We really have no idea what the word means. It has been redefined in our world to mean the freedom to buy shit. When we say that our military is defending our freedom, what we really mean is that they are defending our right to buy big cars and shop at Walmart. With this bastardized definition in place, it is then easy to convince the gullible masses that these are the freedoms we fight for. It took this repurposing of the word to give a concrete image to a concept that would be hard to define otherwise. There is, in Northern California, somewhere in or around Sacramento, a young man named Victor. I have never met Victor, but he was brought to my attention by a friend. His definition of freedom is much more expansive. To him, freedom is a strong body and abilities and movements. In his words, we are rugged from use. We do not seek a stage. We do not seek acceptance. We do not seek fame. We seek strength. We seek awareness. We seek freedom. Victor's definition of what it means to be truly free and autonomous animal has nothing to do with buying shit. The problem with Victor's definition in a consumer society is that no one can make any money from it. It cannot be bought or sold, and therefore has no value in our version of civilization. This could never be embraced by our culture. This definition of freedom would destroy our culture because land of the free has nothing to do with being truly free. And the best things in life truly are free. A walk in the woods, a swim in the ocean, a hug from your child, growing your own food, totally free. Totally free. If you work it right. Anyways, I enjoyed that. I hope you guys did too. moving on. So the consensus was that the longer videos were better. One long video was better than a couple short videos. So I'm going to, sometimes you ask questions that you already know the answer to. So when I asked that question, I kind of already knew the answer to it. I asked it anyways. And when I got the answer, I was like, of course. I spent a lot of time in my life doing that, asking questions or pondering things that I already know the answer to. It's really kind of a waste of time. But I find myself wasting time doing that a lot. I really wish I could get over that compulsion, but it is what it is. So lastly, I'm going to finish up with this. This is from December 28th. The DHS, Department of Homeland Security, says Americans need to start prepping for up to 6 months without electricity. Or actually, this is from December 10th, was the actual date of this article. Funny thing is that I actually heard this. I heard this like last year. I think the same statement was made, or I heard it on another channel that somebody was saying like, yeah, the DHS said, get ready for 6 months without electricity. So maybe they're just restating it. I don't know. In a new report from the President's National Infrastructure Advisory Council and published by the Department of Homeland Security, the government is urging the public to prepare for up to 6 months without electricity, transportation, fuel, money, and healthcare. Well, there you go. Get to prepping, people. If the DHS says so, methinks that mayhem is afoot. DHS is warning that the electric grid is now the prime target of terrorists and says Americans need to be prepared for a power outage of up to 6 months. The report says that people no longer keep enough essentials within their homes, reducing their ability to sustain themselves during an extended, prolonged outage. We need to improve individual preparedness. The report, titled Surviving a Catastrophic Power Outage, warns that an attack would likely come with little to no notice and could cause complete chaos for at least a year and a half. Long duration, lasting several weeks to months, at least 2 months, but more likely 6 months or more, due to physical destruction to equipment such as transformers or transmission lines, or the severity of the event resulting in limited workforce to repair damage or inability to create or transport replacement parts, said the report. The report recommends Americans have enough supplies on hand for a minimum 14 days, a number that now seems grossly inadequate considering the threat and the timeline for reestablishing essential services after an attack. Oh, it gets deeper. This profound risk requires a new national focus. Significant public and private action is needed to prepare for and recover from a catastrophic outage that could leave the large parts of the nation without power for weeks or months and cause severe failures in other sectors, including water and wastewater, communications, transportation, healthcare, and financial services that are critical to public health and safety and our national and economic security, said the Advisory Council. And then there's a picture of a nuclear reactor, and it says, well, let's read down. The report is the second in the last month to warn of a profound threat to the U.S. electrical grid from terrorism and events like a solar storm or solar flare. A prior government report also recommended presidential action to protect the grid from attacks. In that report from the Air Force's Air University, the military warned an EMP-style attack could wipe out the United States, democracy, and the world order. That's all. They also warned that 99 nuclear reactors could likely melt down without electricity to cool them. 4.1 million would be displaced from areas around the nuclear plants as the radioactive cloud spread. Military and commercial jets, such as those built by Airbus, could be degraded. Alarmingly, aircraft designed to carry large numbers of people and sizable cargo are allowed to operate without certainty about their level of resilience. Bases would be cut off, making defense and counterattacks impossible. Civil unrest would start in hours. Power and GPS could go dark. An EMP could cause instantaneous and simultaneous loss of many technologies reliant on electrical power. and computer circuit boards such as cell phones and GPS devices. Failures may include long-term loss of electrical power due to loss of emergency generators, sewage, freshwater banking, landline, cellular service vehicles. 18 months or more are required to replace key elements of the electric grid that would be damaged or knocked out. What can you do to prepare for an attack on our power grid? In my book, The Ultimate Situational Survival Guide, this is from a blog, I believe, I devote a lot of time to this specific topic because I believe, as detailed in these latest reports, our country's emergency managers have no real contingency plan to deal with this type of event. You need to be prepared to survive an extended period without power, without access to food and water, and without essential services. Hell, don't take our word for it. The government is saying they will not be able to help you. I wonder how old this post is actually. It says December 10th, but I feel like this is a recycling of something. But yeah, hey, you know, whatever. Good information. You need to be prepared to survive for an extended period of time without power and essential services. It means stockpiling food and water, learning the skills you need to protect yourself and your family from the chaos, violence that will inevitably happen. And in my opinion, you need to get as far away from highly populated urban centers as you can. We'll go through steps. Stock up on food and water. Have cash on hand. Start becoming more self-reliant. Stock up on firearms. Stock up on backup power. There you go. Actually, I just came into a solar cell phone charger the other day, and it is awesome. And it was free. You know, sometimes you just find things, and you know, there's nobody to claim it. And so, yeah, what I, you know, obviously would like to have some solar panels doing their thing on the roof. I mean, we get a ton of sun, and we get that hot sun right here. So some solar panels would probably do wonders for our electricity bill that is sky high. That is all I have for you today. There are many other articles and things, you know, tidbits of information and nuggets that I wanted to read you, but I feel I have gone on too long. I'm about 27 minutes deep. And I have other things to accomplish tonight before I go to bed. So again, wishing you a happy new year. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. Until next time, peace.